Hello, welcome back. So today we're doing a tag, and this is a tag that I've never done before on my channel, and I say that because it seems like a lot of people do this tag every year and they look forward to it and stuff. But this is, of course, as you can see from the title, the mid-year Freakout book tag, which, I guess I haven't been on YouTube that long to do that. Now, last year, I did do a video called Disappointments and Unexpected Standouts, which was kind of going over some of the books partway through the year, but that wasn't quite at the mid-year, which is like in between June and July. That was posted in early September, so that was more than halfway through the year. But I wanted to try this tag this year. Seemed interesting. Now, for a lot of these questions, there were multiple books that could work for some of these questions, and for some of these questions, I couldn't decide which book to single out. So for a good amount of these answers, I have multiple books. So yeah, there's that, and I also have to skip a few questions because they don't really apply to me. Although, if you want to do this tag, I will put the questions down below, all of them, but I'll still mention the question, but I won't say anything for it. And also, in making the notes for this video, I didn't quite factor in giving out content reviews and stuff, but on my Goodreads this year, I did pretty much write a review for every book. So if you want to know the content details of any of these books, except obviously for the ones I haven't read, because there will be a bit of that, check my Goodreads for content reviews. So I think that is all. Let's get into it. So the first question is, best book you've read so far this year? And that book I picked for this one is Still the Song by Nicole Feller. So yeah, this wasn't entirely surprised that this was good, since I did really like the other Nicole Feller book I've read, which is Feels Like Fire, but I like this one even more. So yeah, I think this is a really good book, especially since it's not only a debut book, but it is a debut book of an indie author, which people always say that indie authors, the quality's not always that good. And I've also heard it said that reading the backlist of an indie author is not as fun. So far, not the case with this one. This is the only other Nicole Feller book I've read, and yeah, so I guess we'll see. So yeah, so if you've been sleeping on the self-published indie books, here you go. So yeah. The next question is best sequel you've read so far this year. So I wasn't sure what to say about this one for a while, because I have read a few sequels, or I guess second books in a series this year, but neither one was particularly good, so I wasn't sure what to say. And I think the best one I didn't want to save for this question because I'm going to be talking about that series later in this video, but the other one I was thinking of, I was kind of like, yeah, but that second book wasn't as good. So this isn't quite a second book, this is a third book in the series, but I still wanted to talk about it, and that is The Prom Queen by Melody Carlson. So this past year, I reread the Life at Kingston High trilogy, which I first read this series in high school. I wanted to reread it to see if the series still holds up. And the interesting thing about this is that this book, this is the third book in this series. When I read it in high school, this was my least favorite book, but when I read it this second time around, I gave it a higher rating than the second book. So that's pretty cool. So yeah. All right, the next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. So this, of course, again, probably no surprise, as I've already said it. It was one of the only anticipated release mentioned in my anticipated reads video, and that is In the Fire of It All by Nicole Feller. So yeah, I've not read it, and I probably won't. I don't know when I'm gonna read it. It won't be next year, maybe the year after that, but yeah, we shall see. And then the next question also has to do with releases, most anticipated release for the second half of the year, but I don't really keep up with new releases that closely, so I don't really know. So yeah, moving on. Next question. Biggest disappointment. This is one of the few points where it gets a little negative. So I wasn't really sure what to say for this one for a while because for a while in this year there was a few books that were kind of disappointing, but not really like a big disappointment. But then I read a book recently that was quite a disappointment, and that is The Sisters of Corinth by Angela Hunt. So I don't want to talk about this one too much because I want to talk more about it in my next recent reads video, but all I'll say right now is that it was not at all what I was expecting, and I hated what was happening the majority of the book. So yeah, moving on. All right, and the next question is biggest surprise. So there's not still at this point in the series what? Still, at this point in the year, there hasn't been much of a big surprise, but there have been quite a few books that were all a bit surprising, so I will talk about all those right now. So the first one, Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. Sorry. So yeah, I thought that I would like it, thought it would be good, but I did not expect to love this as much as I did. I gave this a 4.5, so yeah, there's that. Next, Unearth the Tides by Alyssa J. Zabelianos. So I thought I would like this more than Narnia, but I didn't expect to be intrigued from the beginning and this to be the fantasy book that I've most enjoyed so far. So yeah, there's that. And then Come Forth as Gold by Erica Dancero. So I was surprised by it being historical fiction, though I probably should have remembered that from when I looked at it. I was surprised that it wasn't as romance heavy that I was expecting, and I was surprised that I highlighted as much as I did. So yeah, there's that. And then The Lady of Lunaria by Michaela Bush. So I thought I wouldn't like this book, and I liked it more than expected. And then lastly, Sketchy Behavior by Erin Mangum. I liked the writing more than I expected, and I was surprised that this was suspense. So yeah. Next question, favorite new to you author. I have read a good amount of new to me authors this year. And there were two books, two authors that were really stood out amongst the new to me authors, and I couldn't quite decide. And I will say I will start with the one I liked, I think, more than the others, but they both have different strengths and like all that. So the first one is Alyssa J. Zavalianos, the author of Unearthed the Tides. So again, like I said, intrigued from the beginning, the fantasy book I most enjoyed. The only thing that like kept it back from her being that made me wonder if she was like really a favorite new to me author was that the writing didn't stand out as much as just like the general story. And this is also Christian fantasy, and I felt like the Christian faith content was kind of shoehorned in, but other than that, it was a really good story. Then the other author is Erica Dancero, who is the author of Come Forth as Gold. So yeah, I think this one, the writing stood out more. Like I highlighted, I think 9 to 10 things in this book, which I don't highlight that much. So yeah, there's that. I think the main thing that like kind of makes this not as that the overall story maybe isn't as strong, and like the ending epilogue, I was kind of like, what? But like if you take out the epilogue, it's a really good story. So yeah. All right, the next question, newest fictional crush. They're not applicable. I don't really get those. So yeah, so the next question is newest favorite character. This was kind of hard at first because, as we will talk about later, the status update girls have my heart, and that was a reread. So amongst the newer books, I was like not sure, but then kind of realized later, and I'm gonna say for this question, Luke from Authentically Izzy. So I guess I could have said this for newest fictional crush, but I don't think I like him like that, but I did like what we saw from him in this book. He was kind of like snarky, and like you see most of him through like the emails with his sister and cousin Izzy, and you can tell that like sometimes he like gets kind of annoyed at them. I think especially Penelope, but we also see later in the book like how much he cares for them. I think more so like cares for Izzy, and I guess we'll see more of how he's with Penelope in her book. So yeah, that was it's a nice character, and it seems like this is not like as this is kind of more of a popular choice because it seems according to the Goodreads rating for this series, it seems like a lot of people skip Penelope's book and go straight to reading Luke's book, which okay, like I mean, I'm still gonna read all three books, so yeah. All right, the next book, the next question is book that made you cry. I did not have a book that made me cry this year, so moved on for that. And then book that made you happy. This was the one I wanted to mention. I wanted for this question, even though it probably could have also said for like best book, Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. So yeah, I think the thing that made me happy about this book is like all the little things kind of mentioned in the book, like little details, little things going on. And I also loved Izzy and Amelia's characters. I'm looking forward to reading their books in the series. And one interesting thing I want to talk about, this is kind of a thought that has like evolved over. Though the message of this book is kind of cliche, the more I think about it, I think it is still a message that's needed in today's Christian culture because so like the main message of this book is that like it's okay to not be okay, which I know people say, oh, that's cliche and all that, but in certain circles of Christianity, Christians are told either to suppress their negative emotions or worse, that their negative emotions are demons. So I think even though this book probably won't make as much of an impact, it's not that popular of a book, I think yeah, the message is still needed. And maybe it could be delivered in a more powerful way to get through to people, but yeah. All right, next question. Most beautiful book you've bought or received this year? And I assume this is supposed to be like cover design. So I chose Paper Walls by Nicole Feller because look at this now. This camera doesn't quite do it justice because like not only have you got that title font, but like the kind of blue watercolor background, and then the pink and purplish hearts, and also kind of like beige hearts, or like a I don't know what kind of color that is, but like it's gorgeous. Like I mean all Nicole Feller covers are gorgeous, but like this one might be my favorite. So yeah, I haven't read this one yet, but I will read it this year. So that's nice. So yeah, see, it's one of her more thicker books. Like I think Still the Song is one of her shorter ones. So yeah, I guess we'll see. And then I'll just quickly mention the next two questions. The next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? The rest of the ones on my TBR? Like, what do you mean? I guess this is more for people who, like, I guess this question is more for people who, like, they don't have they don't write a list of all the books and stick to it. They're kind of mood readers and have, like, a big physical TBR, but that's not me. So, yeah, there's that. And then also, favorite book to film or book to TV adaptation you've seen this year? I don't really watch a lot of movies or TV, so yeah, moving on. Next question, favorite reread of the year. Now, this one is interesting because my favorite reread of the year is not my highly rated reread, but it was the best experience, and it did say favorite reread, not best reread, so there's that. I feel justified in talking about these books. Probably already saw this coming. The Status Update series by Laura L. Smith. Yeah, I yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure out like my rating system because I feel like these books maybe should have gotten a higher rating than it did. The first and third book got 3.5, and then the third got 3 stars. I wonder if it should have been higher, considering how much I love these books and love these girls. But like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Just yeah, read these books. All right. So the next question is best standalone you've read so far. So this is really the only question prompt that this book could work for, so I'm going to talk about it here. And that is The Bright Unknown by Elizabeth Byler Youths. Can only work for this one because this was not a new to me author, not part of it. It wasn't exactly the best, but it still wanted to talk about it. So I know not everyone cares for historical fiction, and I thought I didn't care for it for a time either, but for me, Elizabeth Byler Yountz, she has a way of making stories that maybe to me from the synopsis don't sound as interesting, but in the book it's captivating. So that was my experience with this book. That was my experience with her book that I read last year, The Salts of Water. Just yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of this woman's books. Although these are the most recent publishings and might be one of her better books, but we'll still read her backlist. So yeah. All right. The next question is book that lived up to the hype. So this one is kind of hard for me because I don't read a lot of hyped up books, and usually the ones that I do read I tend not to like as much as the people hyping them up. So for this question I've chosen one book that does get a good amount of hype, and I didn't love it, but it was still a really good book, and that book is, sorry, I'm trying to get it, Love and a Little White Lie by Tammy L. Gray. So yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars, which I'm going by this year. 3.5 stars means 4-star worthy, but I didn't really like it. I just liked it. I guess I feel bad about like the Goodreads rating where it says 3 stars liked it, 4 stars really liked it, and so yeah, that's what I'm going by. So I like this one. This one to me was better than I expected, which like that's weird to say talking about a book that's hyped up and lived up to the hype. But it seems like for me, hype has like the opposite effect. Like the more a book is hyped up, the more I'm interested in it or think it's going to be good. So yeah, and one thing that I was also not sure about that I'd heard is that this book has a love triangle, and I was kind of like, why does the story need a love triangle? But one thing I was impressed by was that the way the love triangle played out, it seemed more purposeful than just having a love triangle for the sake of having a love triangle. So yeah, this is a pretty good book. And the last question is book you wish more people would read. And there were 3 that I couldn't decide between, and and then I thought, you know what, since this is a question talking about books you wish more people would read, might as well mention all of these. And I've already mentioned all of these before in this video, but you really should read them. So first, Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. Unearth the Tides by Alyssa J. Zavalianos, and of course, Still the Song by Nicole Feller. Just read these books, please. So, yeah. So that is all for this video. Again, I'll put the questions down below if you also want to do this tag. So, yeah, that is all. Goodbye!